I do, in fact, cook.
Just raw and honest of what the landscape looks like.
My career started at Harvey's.
What is that secret sauce that you share with the team to mentor them?
The skill set may be perfect because it's a personality fit.
If you're a good marketer, then you have a keen understanding of people.
Don't stress. Just walk me through it. I just want to understand what's going on.
You are kind of used as an example when it comes to the journey.
Stop it.
Stop.
Just stop.
Welcome back, everybody, to a brand new edition of GetWyse. I'm your host, Christopher Smith.
I'm Kelly Anderson.
Kelly Anderson, the brand Halo pioneer herself.
It's true.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Missed you on the last episode. It's good to have you back.
I'm happy to be back. Happy to be back.
Good. Well, I'm happy to have who we have in the office today, in the hot seat today.
Very special guest.
Very special guest. You know, a man that wears many hats. You know what? Let me go even a little further back than that, because I gotta admit something. As a podcast producer, guys, I kind of see the world in podcasts. So when people speak, I'm just kind of podcasting in my head. So I kind of have this thought very often: this person should start a podcast. You know. And I'm not gonna lie, the person that we have in the hot seat today, guys, is the very first person that I had this thought about when working at TechWyse. He goes by many names. You know, I think he refers to himself as a guy that works here.
Just a guy who works here.
Yeah, but
we lovingly call him Robert.
Robert is here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being with us, Robert.
Rego.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. We have an interesting topic to dive in today, and we brought you to the metaphorical table here because you've been in the industry for how many years?
This month actually makes it 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah, 13 years. Seven years here, but 13 years altogether.
And when you think back at your career and when you were kind of deciding to go away to school, did you go away to school? Take us way back and tell us kind of where you got your beginnings and what led you here.
Because I'm not gonna lie, you were kind of used as an example by, Big Guns DJ when it comes to the journey and the point A to B on that. So I'm really excited to hear about your journey just for that reason alone.
Spill all the tea. Tell us everything.
So funny thing is, my career started, not kidding, at Harvey's. So I started...
hold on. Harvey's...
Love a good Angus.
Burger Harvey's.
Burger Harvey's.
Canadian
Burger Harvey's started pretty standard.
Now I'm hungry, but continue.
I started at, standard, just doing the standard stuff, cashier thing. But as I went to school, for Bachelor of Commerce, so pretty standard.
Yep.
I worked through that period of college and university and stuff like that. After school, I graduated with like I said, Bachelor of Commerce. But the thing is that, you kind of get stuck in that situation like everyone else graduating at the same time, where you get a university degree. I don't know, at this time, basically feels like a high school diploma at this point, right?
Yeah.
So,
True.
You graduate, specialize in marketing and didn't know exactly what to do. I stuck working at Harvey's. I was a corporate trainer, so I was opening up restaurants across Canada, and that was a great experience. But the problem is I was just stuck with a passion for marketing in my degree and just couldn't get a job because the reality is that you have a degree, but you don't have any experience.
No.
So you're really hoping on an employer saying, I'm willing to gamble on this guy. And it just never really worked. And I think where the interesting journey for me was I decided, about a year after graduating to go back to college with a specialization in project management. What drew me to that was, what I realized is that I don't think I'm going to get a job in marketing right out the gate without some sort of experience. So at the time I went back to school, I got my degree in project management. It was an 8-month program, but what came with it was a free internship.
Perfect. Yep.
And I knew that was probably the way to get me in the industry.
Get your hands
and
dirty.
I did a 4-month internship at Universal Music Canada.
Okay.
So cool.
So for 4 months, and that was great. But that's what really opened up the doors, is that once you can put something on your resume that actually had marketing experience, I was able to get, applications. I was getting jobs. I was getting interviews and stuff like that. But that's where the interesting journey for me, and I take a lot of pride of making the decision to say, I understand I have a university degree. I know what I'm talking about. I'm book smart, but can I apply it? And I knew that with the university degree, I just knew it wasn't going to work.
Yep.
So I took the time to do 8 months in college, had a great experience. The paid internship after that, interviews kind of came fluctuating in. And then that's when I started, that's when I got my first job in account management at the, very young age of 21, 22.
Wow.
And then kind of worked my way through my career from there. And, I did 5 years at another company called Uno App, which was a website development company and focused on, digital marketing, like screens, like restaurant screens and stuff like that. Yep. So did account management there and then project management, and then eventually moved over here to TechWyse and was a account manager for about a year, and then got promoted to director of accounts. And now,
look at you now.
I know I've really climbed the proverbial.
That's what DJ's talking about.
Yeah. So.
And that's really what we want to talk about in this episode is career journeys, specifically yours, but also like if anybody's watching and is considering a career in this industry of digital marketing and marketing, what they can kind of expect. And we're breaking it down to make it a little bit more just raw and honest of what the landscape looks like, how things have changed, but also like what someone in your position is looking for in someone who would work on a team like this. Because I felt the same. Like when I graduated university, I was like, okay, this is great. I have this 4-year degree, but what's next? I don't know what I actually want to do. I know what I kind of like to do, but like what's actually available. And it took quite a bit of time to actually land my first agency job. It took me going back to like the musical theater camp that I worked at in high school for a little while and just doing marketing for them for fun on the side to then be like, oh, now I have some practical experience of marketing in the real world, and then got my agency job. So I think it's different for everyone, but it's not just like, oh, necessarily got to school and everything works out perfectly. There's you have to start sometimes at Harvey's.
It's interesting because there's a very different, like I'm going to age myself here a little bit, but you went to school for marketing, right? Digital marketing was not nearly as much of a focus as it is now. So the clear deal, the difference here is that with digital marketing, it's very much having an entrepreneurial mindset, right? So that's the real
nuance,
difference, right? Is that you can get trained in school, and I think there's programs now for digital marketing and specializations, but with a lot of people that we work with, that we've hired and all that stuff, they're kind of self-taught, and that's the way that I progressed through my career. I mean, when I worked at the first company that I worked with in the actual industry, it was website development. It was coding. I never went to school and learned HTML.
No.
I self-taught myself. And that's how you progress. And a lot of people that we hire, that we work with, they're not coming to me and saying, yes, I did 4 years of school in digital marketing. And they don't do that. But what they've done is they come and say, I built my own WordPress website. I built an e-commerce platform on Shopify. And that's the reality. That's the experience that we need. And that's the people that we work with, right?
And a lot of people, I think now, like you mentioned internships, and I really do think that that's changed over the last couple of years, last 10 years, 20 years. Like it used to be you could get an apprenticeship for some things, but internships didn't really exist, or you were just the person getting coffee back in the day. And things have progressed so much that now everybody wants to hire someone who's done like a paid internship or has really gotten themselves in there and has hands-on experience, almost like more of that college experience, so that we know that it's not just this theoretical knowledge that you've gained in a university environment. Have you seen some of those changes of what's changed and what you look for, or what has happened or changed in the team of the types of skills they bring to the table over the last couple years?
Absolutely. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people and obviously had people, work with the company, but, I'm not really looking at, you went 4 years at insert university here. That doesn't really mean to me. It's more of the practical skills. A lot of what we do now to kind of understand what level of experience the person has, we have an actual like practical test, and I keep it very open-ended, right? So what I actually do is
weeds a lot of people out. I imagine.
Exactly, but we actually want to keep it open-ended, not to challenge them to say try to figure it out,
but to choose your own adventure. Show us what your flair is.
Right. And we send a client's website. It's actually a website that I really like. Right? So what I do is I send it to them and say, tell me what you think. Right? And there's no wrong answer. It's about what's their understanding and what's their experience and how they approach different things, right? Because
they can be as creative as they want, right?
Exactly. They could come back to me and say, I think the website's great. Here's probably 3 things that I would do. And that's a great answer too, right? It's about understanding what the depth of the person's willing to go to, or they may go crazy and go crazy analytical, right?
Because that tells you something about them and the way that they work and the way that their brain works.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're going to touch on it in a little bit, but the dynamic of the team is to have a little bit of everything, right? And I made the joke earlier today was to get a puzzle piece together, you need a little bit different pieces. They're all not the same size. They all work differently, right? So you have people that are very numbers based that have been with me for, 6-7 years and just Excel spreadsheets, and that's how she does her reviews. There's people that are very empathetic, right? There are people that are more salesy that understand like this is what your approach is, and that's fine. But the approaches together makes a cohesive team, right? So I'm not always looking for, I need someone with this specific skill set. The skill set may be perfect because it's a personality fit than it is an experience fit, because I've hired a lot of people that have literally no experience and say, I come from a customer service background. I come from Harvey's background, not to say it's always applicable there, but you know, it's all about how they can fit into the role and say, we can train you on the hard skills. The soft skill is the hardest part to train someone on. So they may come to me and say, listen, I don't have any experience in digital marketing, but I have lots of experience in customer service. That's something I can work with.
So would you say that resumes, like obviously they're important these days and have always been, but past the resume, that first interview, what are you looking for beyond the resume? Like, it doesn't matter what school they went to. It doesn't matter like what their GPA was. What are you looking for in the answers or in the personality or what someone's bringing to the table that are like your green flags? And then maybe some of your red flags just for fun.
I honestly, a lot of the times it comes down to confidence and how they're answering the questions, to be honest. You can say it comes down to, you can go with the cookie cutter answers and say, where do you see yourself in 3 years? Right?
I think you asked me that one in my interview.
I did ask you that one. But there was no wrong answer to that, because you can't say, where do you see yourself in 3 years? And if someone doesn't say, oh, I'm going to be the boss of the company. If they don't answer that, that's not a problem, right? It's not a big deal. But if they come with confidence, that's the hardest thing to really train someone on, right? Because you can get the opposite side of saying, listen, I can run a report on Ahrefs. I can spit out numbers like you wouldn't believe, but I get shaky in tough situations. And that's something you can't train, right? And if you're a sports fan, if you're a baseball fan, whatever it is, right? You can say, listen, I can throw the ball the hardest, but it's not within the strike zone. What are you really doing? There's no point of doing it. A lot of the times it really comes down to confidence. I'm really throwing them kind of a curveball on previous experiences on their jobs. So I'll say, walk me through what a 5-day work week looks like for you. And they go through it deeply and say, oh, this is what I do. And that's usually what I look for when I'm talking to an individual, and I'll throw some case studies at you. Hey, what happens when a client calls and say, I want to cancel? How do you approach it?
I think it's a great process to kind of, like I said before, sort of weed things out. And I imagine doing those types of things, you kind of catch people slipping, and then that's when the red flags kind of start to pop up. What does that kind of look like?
You see people's confidence slip a little bit, and then you can kind of put them in that pressure situation as if a client was asking them a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, the red flags, I think a lot of the times are the opposite, right? It's I get it. Interviews are stressful, right? You're really trying to sell yourself. It's almost like you're on a dating app and you're talking, I like long walks on the beach.
Oh, don't I know it?
Yes.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah, but the red flags are usually how they answer. If they're very vague or they're shaky, and I get it. I always tell people during the interview, guys, don't stress. Right? Just walk me through it. I'm not really drilling you. I just want to understand what's going on. When they start fiddling, right, or they're one of the big things is they don't have a notepad or anything. They don't ask any questions of the interview. I think that's the biggest red flag. You can go through a 45-minute interview and
say, do you have any questions? And they say, nope, I'm good.
Or they don't.
How do you not?
They don't take any notes. To go back a little bit on the green flag stuff is asking the right questions in terms of like, the number one is always, how do I become successful here at a company like this? I think that's the biggest green flag, because that's someone who's interested in saying, how can I progress? It's not about being, a 9-to-5er and just doing the job. And there's nothing wrong with being a 9-to-5er, but if you're understanding like, what do I need to learn? What designations should I have before working here? Those are the biggest green flags. But if you on the flip side, you're saying, I don't have any questions after 45-minute interviews. Little.
Were we having the same conversation?
Yeah. But and like dating though too, I truly believe that in the interview process, like we're interviewing someone, but they're also kind of interviewing us also, if they're going to be a good fit and feel comfortable here at our company that we have these other people at. So it's making sure both sides feel like they're a good fit. Going back to what you said about asking questions, one question that I always have kept throughout my career and what my mom taught me when I was first trying to get my agency job was to ask the question at the end, if there was like a news story of the success of me in this career in 3 years' time to the CEO, whoever you're interviewing with, what would that news headline say about me if I did a really good job? Would it say like Kelly became X and launched a campaign that gained over whatever? Like, what does success look like to the CEO or to the manager of me and my role in that period of time. And I always thought that was an interesting way to think about it, of what would be that big milestone celebration in 3 years that you'd want to celebrate with me as someone in the role. Are there any questions that you have asked Chris in previous roles or things?
I mean, I think there's always the classic, oh, my biggest weakness is I'm hard on myself,
right.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's also kind of interesting, like the more abstract ones, like if you were, we talked about this, if you were a kitchen tool.
My first agency job, they asked me if I was a kitchen utensil, what would I be? And I said, I'd be a whisk to stir things up creatively. I know, it was a tough one. It was a tough one.
I avoid that one because it really
I know. You like to cut through the fluff.
Yeah,
I know that you do.
For me, it would be like, I'm a sport.
I know, right?
I cover all bases. It's
well, and we did have the chips discussion earlier today at lunch about what chip is like the number one chip that you would go for. So do you ask people that?
I do. I'll never forget this one interview I had with someone, and it was probably the most amusing one I've ever had, where he was very serious.
Yes.
He's a young guy trying to start his career, and he comes in and he's all dressed up, and he's so rigid.
Yep.
And I'm like, you gotta relax.
You're like, I need to make him laugh.
I basically just said, like, he was just like, I marketing, and I was like, okay. So I had to stop the interview and said, listen, okay, what do you do in your free time? And he goes, I read marketing books. And I go,
no.
I'm like,
no, you don't.
I literally had to stop, and I go, stop it. I said, just stop.
I know what you're doing here.
You're not a robot. You don't sit around at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday reading marketing books. What do you really do? And he goes, well, I like jujitsu.
And video games.
There we go. Thank you.
Yes, now we're getting
I'm not hiring a robot.
I think that's another really, it is kind of a red flag, right? If somebody's like trying too hard and are so stiff and are too by the book, sometimes it can be a bit of a red flag to be like, I don't know if you'll get along with the people here from a culture perspective in terms of just being able to like be in office every day and communicate and hang out and become this kind of work family, right?
Well, clients meld with you.
Yeah, clients pick up on that too.
If you're coming in and being like, hey, X person, what did you do on the weekend? I read marketing books. Like, that's not really, that's not how you build that relationship. Because a lot of the digital marketing world is very much about performance, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's also about
people work with people they like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you don't sit around and read marketing books.
True.
So like, you got to be personable, right?
Yep.
And that's a lot of when we talk about interviews, it's like, it's the confidence, right?
Yeah.
How are you interacting? How are you answering questions? And I had one recently with a guy that we hired, and he was just so confident.
Yeah.
He's like, listen, he took a similar approach that I did when I first interviewed here. And I said, listen, I know nothing about this stuff, but I'm ready to learn. And that DJ was like, okay, cool. Like that makes sense, right? And he took the same approach. He goes, listen, I've been doing marketing. I don't understand this stuff. I'm willing to learn, but I know how to work with clients. At the end of the day, that's the hardest thing to learn. Perfect. I can deal with that.
The rest is teachable, right?
Yes.
But the confidence isn't necessarily teachable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a little ironic, honestly, because marketing is like, if you're a good marketer, then you have a keen understanding of people, you know? So it's just like that guy that isn't a people person for a marketing, it's ironic a little bit, you know?
Totally. You've built a really amazing team here at TechWyse, and we work with them all the time. Chris and I are on the social media team, but we work a lot with your account management team. What is kind of the secret sauce of making sure that your team is well educated on what they're doing every day, well connected, are keeping on top of their clients, are being innovative? What is that secret sauce that you've kind of tried to share with the team to mentor them and take them to the next level in their careers?
Because we know there is a sauce.
We know there's a secret sauce.
I see everybody, and I see the conversations you have and the way that you inject.
Is it from Harvey's? Is the sauce from Harvey's?
We know there is a sauce.
I do say I do hear the younger people in the office say, let this man cook. I don't know what that means, but I do know
cook.
that I do in fact cook.
Yes, so, you do cook.
Yes, I don't know what that means still, but I am cooking apparently.
That's the clip we're going to take and we're going to put on.
That's what the kids say too, apparently.
Yeah,
so.
that clip we're putting on TikTok
I am cooking.
For sure.
I think for me, it's a bit two things. It's a bit of the management approach and a bit of the touching points in terms of talking with the AM. So, every Friday we have a morning get together, kind of understanding how did the week go,
right? What
were the wins, what were some of the things that we would need to work on, and then we kind of do a training session kind of every week and saying, where are the room for improvement. The other component is kind of my management style. People typically say you have a micromanager approach. I am in my opinion, the complete opposite of a micromanager. Right. You know, I let them, similar to what we talked about earlier with the entrepreneurial approach, is like, you know, I can coach them through a lot of things. Not to say I'm some sort of digital marketing messiah, but like.
But you want them to cook too.
Yeah, I want them to also, in fact, cook. Yes. But, you know, I want to kind of coach them through different things because I have different experiences and some of the account managers have different experiences I do. So for us, it's I'm not going to micromanage you and kind of sit over your shoulder and say, what are you doing? What needs work on it? What are you doing? And kind of drilling it into them. I have a, you know, even in our seating plan, I think this is a really good, important understanding. You know, some managers kind of sit separate from their team.
I was going to say this.
Yeah.
You're
with a closed door and like an office.
But Robert's right in the center of his team.
Yeah.
Like they literally are working all around him and he's accessible right there physically and visually.
That's big, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, leadership by example, by being in the trenches with the account managers, you know, not only buys them faith, but understand that I'm approaching the same problems that they potentially are having. One of us. So I make the joke all the time, if my office had a door, it would be open.
Right.
But I don't have a door. I'm sitting right beside them, understanding when the problem's happening, they can stand up and ask me right away versus walking all the way over, tapping, or are you on a call? No, I'm not. I am right there with them, fighting every day, you know, understanding the struggles of different things. The wins, I celebrate the wins right with them. So it's a bit of taking a, you know, letting that entrepreneurial spirit come to me and saying like, hey, I'm really struggling with this problem. How can I understand it? Or how can I get better? Okay, no problem. We'll sit down and go through it. Or we'll make it a topic for the account management meeting in the mornings and Fridays to understand, you know, what can we do and learn from a team from this one problem this one account manager may have.
The kids would say that you are in the trenches with them.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes.
People are watching or listening, and again, they're looking to get into this industry and they're listening to you talk and all of this is great. What are some actionable tips that you could give them to help them land that job? Or if they were here coming to TechWyse and were like, hey, I want to be an account manager and work for Robert. So anyone looking for specific actionable tips that they can follow when preparing for a job interview in this field, what should they know from a research standpoint, from any tools that they should investigate or have prior knowledge? Some people are going to come, of course, with maybe little to no experience, but if they can prepare, what would you tell them?
Get your designations, right? There is a lot. There's Google Ads, there's Google Analytics. You know, you can get different diplomas or designations that are literally free, and you can self-teach yourself. I mean, that is the biggest shoe-in for a lot of people. And even when we interview people, we obviously send them home with the takeaway kind of quiz, send them a link to the website. But we also mention the designations during the interview, and usually they'll come back and say, oh, you know, I looked into it. I actually got them during the process. To me, that's
shows that initiative.
Oh yeah, it's a proactive interview.
Well, and at TechWyse here, we actually encourage the entire team to get designations in a bunch of different things. So you'd have to do them anyways if you wanted to come work with us.
I'm pretty sure everybody in this office
has. So you might as well just get started, right?
They expire every year anyways, or I think maybe 3 years. I'm not sure.
Yeah, some of them are one.
But they're required. They're actually required because if they expire, you have to kind of get redesignated and everything. So that's part of the requirement. So if you can show that initiative, you can go to school for digital marketing. And I get that's more of a common thing. Some of us dinosaurs
went for media and communication.
Exactly.
And look at us now.
Look at us now.
Bachelor in commerce.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, I think that's probably the most like glaring thing is that there are things, you know, teaching yourself WordPress, teaching yourself web development stuff. That is a proactive approach to say, I have the initiative. I know what I need to do. Again, I'm still learning and we'll kind of coach people through that. But if you take that initiative, going into an interview saying, yeah, I've got my Google Ads designation, I got my analytics designation, says a lot more than someone who has a 4-year degree. And that's just the reality of it because that is applicable skills. Those are 100% applicable skills than it is, you know, some of the things that you learned in university.
Well, and it shows the type of person that you are when you show up to a work environment. Yeah. Like you're always pushing, you're always learning, you're always going to keep on things. You're going to have that ambition to keep pushing forward and just not get too stagnant or comfortable. And those are also all good things, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like I had a bit of an inverse, like kind of to Robert's experience with my journey because I went to school for media and was so like, you know, learned how to, you know, set up a podcast, you know, and use these softwares and everything like that. And then it kind of found myself in the field of like, okay, but how do I sell these things into tangible things where it becomes like a stream of like revenue? Like, how do you sell a podcast? How do you make that like a service, you know, which kind of, you know, I think full circle on what we're doing right now too,
For
right?
sure. There's so many different things that you need to know as a digital marketer, especially as an AM, because you guys are kind of a little bit of generalists when it comes to needing to know a little bit about social media, needing to know about sales, needing to know about PPC, needing to know about all of the different departments that are here. Chris and I are in one department, but you have to kind of deal with every single department. So having more knowledge and having the insight to kind of explore all of those different avenues, I think makes a good AM, I would say as well.
Yeah, I mean,
general interest in all of the things.
And then I always try to encourage people to have even a specialization in account management. I mean, it's okay to be middleman or middlewoman to whatever kind of job role that you have, and communicating from what we call experts or gurus, whatever the title that you want to give your SEO or PPC specialist. But for us, it's one of those things that we want them to like, hey, I really like social media and this is my kind of thing, or meta ads or something like that. So we always try to encourage them to kind of specialize. I think it's
to find their niche or specialty, and then have the confidence to go to that manager in the office and say, hey, I want to learn more from you.
Yeah, and as a manager, like I said, we have someone that's worked with me for almost 7 years now, and I would say she's more proficient than me in Google Ads, and that's fine, and that's her specialty, and she really likes it because the numbers are there, and there's no kind of playing around with it or subjectivity to it. So for her, that's what she leaned into, right? So I think that's
knowing your strengths and playing to them, I think, is a huge part. And
Absolutely.
Chris and I know that very well.
Yeah.
Like, we're on the same department, but when it comes to setting up audio, he's the guy to do it. You don't want me doing it.
And then when it comes to kind of the schmoozing, front-facing aspects to clients and everything, which is something I learned like a lot from Kelly as well. And I think there's lots of roles and different hats. I also just feel like there might, and correct me if I'm wrong, I do feel like, especially when I was in school, there was a notion about marketing of it almost being like almost being described as an everyman's thing, where it's like a general thing, like, okay, if the niche thing that I want isn't available, I'll be able to fall back on marketing. And I feel like this recording dispels that myth, because like, you had one, field of study, and you went back, and the project management degree is kind of what got you in this field. So there are a lot of hats then, which kind of makes me ponder the question, because we do have these distinctions in the office. What is the distinction that you make between account managing and then project managing? Because it is something you went to school for, but now you're an account manager. The
way that I boil it down, it's very simple. Like, project management is set up to kind of build the car, and the account managers are there to maintain it. So, it's a very simple process. We obviously have our sales team that brings in clients and tries to help them grow. And then it goes directly from the salesperson to the project manager. So the project manager is saying, okay, this is what you've come on board for. We're going to set everything up, build the car for you. The account manager, after everything's built, you kind of maintain it, make sure it's successful, it runs smoothly, it's got all tires, all that stuff. I make the joke all the time, but that's really what it is that project management builds the car, account managers maintain that car and or grow it, right? I don't know how you grow a car, but you get the point, right? You kind of make sure
add special features onto it, and you upgrade the tires and the rims.
The underglow,
rims.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Need for Speed Underground, a little bit of underlight glow.
So that's what you're doing all day.
Yes.
Okay, it makes perfect sense now. So we've been learning a lot from you. Thank you again for joining us. But I want to put you on the spot a little bit, because arguably you are one of the best people in the office to respond on the spot. I've seen
That's
you.
why I was excited for this episode.
If a client ever has a question or a concern or something's going on, you are so good at managing, which is great why you're an account manager. But I want to kind of show or let everyone hear, if they're listening to the podcast, a little bit of how good you are. Okay.
On the spot.
On the spot.
Is this where I cook?
Yes, you're about to cook. Everybody.
Put the apron, chefs, I can sharpen your knives.
Okay, so I've got some myths or facts. I've got some true or falses, and then some that I just want to see how you respond. Okay. So this can be rapid fire, like quick answers. Okay. Myth or fact? SEO is dead.
Myth.
Okay.
It's evolved.
Yep.
More content heavy than it ever has been before.
Yep.
Definitely a myth.
Okay. What's one digital marketing trend you think is totally overrated?
Well, that's a hard one. I think leaning too much into one thing, you have to diversify your digital marketing presence.
Don't be top.
I love it. What's your go-to social platform for business?
Oh, LinkedIn. I'm a dinosaur. You guys make fun of me all the time. I don't have LinkedIn. I don't have Facebook. I'm a LinkedIn type
Okay.
person.
What's your favorite type of content, video or blog posts?
Video.
Video. Nice. Good answer.
Yeah.
True or false? More traffic equals more sales.
False.
Okay. If you could only use one tool for digital marketing, what would it be?
For me, it's Ahrefs. I think that's my bread and butter. Absolutely.
What's the biggest mistake brands make with their ads?
I think assuming what the customer wants, then actually using the data to make decisions that actually apply to people.
Good answer. Do you believe email marketing is still relevant?
Marketing automation is not straight cold emails. Does not work anymore.
Okay. Good
Okay.
answer.
Paid ads versus organic growth. What's your preference?
Short-term paid,
Yep.
long-term SEO.
Love it. What's your biggest digital marketing pet peeve?
That's a hard one because
You're
there's a
gonna
lot.
say TikTok.
There's a lot. No, assuming your website is not playing a role in your conversion. If your website does
We hear
not
that a lot
convert,
here. Yeah.
Yep.
do not. It has nothing to do with SEO or paid ads. I know this answer's long, but I want to address this one.
Yep.
This is important to me because I come from a website development background. Is you can get tens of thousands of visits a month, but if your website is terrible to navigate, that's where you lose a customer.
User experience is everything.
100%.
True or false? You need a huge budget to be successful in digital
False.
marketing. And one last one. What's one myth about social media marketing that drives you crazy?
Don't always assume the biggest platforms is where you're going to win. You know, don't assume that, I make the joke all the time, it's Facebook is for old people.
Right.
Cannot assume that.
Yep.
You have to kind of test things out and see what works and what doesn't work and then go from there because, again, people will come to us and be like, oh, Instagram's my platform. That's where it's going to work. Can't assume.
And we can back that up because in the social media department, we hear that all the time. They're like, we want to be on this. And we're like, why? They're like, we just think we should. No, let me show you something else.
Absolutely.
So we go back to the data for a lot of, we're a data-driven agency, not just success-driven, but we're data-driven. And I think that's crucial and important. Do you have anything else you want to share with anybody listening who maybe wants to work for you and would be considering applying to a job here at TechWyse?
Yeah. I mean, for me, again, I keep on harping on it, is having that entrepreneurial mindset and kind of making yourself successful yourself, right? I think, you may not have a 4-year degree in digital marketing, but you can still find a lot of success in this vertical. And again, some of the best people I've ever worked with have no background in it, but have been able to figure it out and self-teach themselves. So for me, that's the number one thing. It's just that how can you make yourself successful? And that's the best way to approach it. Not just working here, but working in an agency or digital marketing in general is understanding how can I provide the maximum amount of value to people I work with, to employers, whatever it is. And, like I said, when I first started, I had no idea what HTML. I didn't learn anything in school. Self-taught myself, understanding what bootstrapping is, what CSS is, being able to, change hex codes on websites and all that stuff. Taught myself, didn't learn it, but that's what I thought would provide the most amount of value to my employer, and it did, right? So it's helped me now to this day, right? So it's about setting yourself up for success.
So do you want to give a quick shout out to Harvey's?
Shout out to Harvey's. I still eat there all the time.
Now I'm hungry.
Of course.
Let's go grab a milkshake.
Go get an Angus.
All right, let's do it.
Underrated veggie burger. Go
Oh,
get
yes.
yourself
You've talked a lot about that.
I'm not a vegetarian, but shout out
You're
to
an
the veggie burger.
influencer now for
Oh,
Harvey's.
please no.
I'm
down.
We'll get you a brand deal by the end of the year.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, perfect.
I'm fine with that.
Well,
That Harvey's bag is going to come.
There you go.
Well, thank you, Robert, for joining us.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. This has been GetWyse. We'll see you in another episode.
See ya.